Broadcasting live from Jackson and State in Chicago's Loop, it's Radio DePaul Sports and Entertainment.
You're listening to RDSE, where sports and showbiz meet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons. And today, we're not going to start off with the Sacramento Kings. I want to give a special player in the NBA a shout-out today, Jonathan Williams. If you know me, I am from upstate New York, 585 for Canandaigua, which is about 20 to 30 minutes away from Rochester. So I got to give a shout out to Jonathan Williams, 585 native, having his two-way contract with the Rockets changed to a standard 4-year, $8.2 million deal. The UPrep guard transferred to Prolific Prep in Napa, California, where he was a 4-star, 142nd ranked nationally by 24/7 Sports his senior season, which was 2018. Jonathan held offers from Marquette, where now Demarius Owens, another Rochester native, plays college hoops in his freshman season, which hopefully I get to go watch him a couple times in the next couple years with Marquette playing DePaul. And then along with Marquette, he also had offers from Canisius, Georgia Tech, Minnesota, New Mexico, St. Bonaventure, which has another Rochester native in Miles Rose, Syracuse, Temple, Virginia, which would have put him on a national championship winning team in 2019, and then along with Pitt and Temple. Jonathan was a very sought-after recruit and became the Buffalo Bulls' highest recruit in their history of their program. In his 4 seasons, he was a 3-year starter, and as a Bull, he averaged 12.1 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, on 46.7% shooting and 35% from the three-point line. His best season came in his senior season, where he put up 19.1 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 1.4 steals on 50.6% shooting and 45 from the three, on just under 5 shots a game from the three-point line. Jonathan then went undrafted in the 2022 NBA draft, but he didn't stop working. Jonathan then signed with the Salt Lake City Stars, where in 32 games and 28 in which he started, he averaged 14.4 points per game on just under 60% from the field and 42% from three. During the 2023-2024 season, he also appeared in 5 NBA games for the Trailblazers, 4 in which he started. His NBA debut was on April 2nd, where he scored 7 points and 5 rebounds. In his 5 games, he scored his career high, which is 17 points in a game against the Warriors. Past 2 seasons, he has spent with the Rockets on a 2-way contract, playing in 32 games, averaging 3.2 points per game in 6.4 minutes. But in per 36 minutes, meaning if he was a starter, it is guessed he'd average around 18 points per game over the past 2 seasons. Now has earned his first real contract in the NBA, and I love to see it. I love to see all the guys from not my hometown, but an area near my hometown really getting the love that they deserve, because Rochester has a lot of really good hoopers. They just tend to not make it to the NBA, and they're not superstars. We also have guys like Thomas Bryant, an NBA champion, Isaiah Stewart, star role player for the Detroit Pistons, Jalen Pickett from the Nuggets, which we'll get into him against the Sacramento Kings, and then another NBA champion, Anthony Lamb, from a couple seasons ago. They're really showing out for Rochester, giving guys something to look forward to, knowing that they can actually make it to that level if they really take the time in and really push themselves to be the best. And then again, Rochester has a lot of talented guys. I mean, Jaden Bradley from Arizona, who was in March Madness last year. Mason Blackwood, who has committed to play for Penn State in the next couple of seasons, and a guy that has some serious NBA talent, and I'm super hyped to see him eventually in the D1 level, and then hopefully in the NBA level, is Eric Hillsman, a 4-star recruit ranked inside the top 100 for the class of 2026. The 6'6" body and super long arms, could play a similar way to Herb Jones of the Pelicans. And guys like Jonathan, guys like Thomas Bryant, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Pickett, Anthony Lamb from a couple of seasons ago, they really they give these guys a lot of hope, a lot of things to look forward to. A lot of these guys, Thomas Bryant, Isaiah Stewart, they come back a lot to the Rochester area, have camps. So it's big to see that and love to see it. And hopefully Rochester just continues to grow and be a basketball town like it used to be, because for me, I'm a Sacramento Kings fan. If you know history about the Sacramento Kings, they were originally the Rochester Royals, which I wasn't alive for that, which they won the championship in 1953. So it's been a long time since Rochester has had a basketball team on that level, but that's really the reason why I'm a Kings fan. I'm big into NBA history, and I love being able to root for a team that used to be about 20 to 30 minutes away from my home. So that's really why I'm a Kings fan, and seeing these guys from Rochester really put on for the city is amazing to see. And that's all I got to say about Janathan and the Rochester guys. Hopefully in the next couple of years we can speak more on them as they become more star role players and maybe even some stars, because Janathan, he was a 4-star recruit, 142nd nationally, so he really has the skill level. His Rockets teammate Jalen Green also went to Prolific Prep, but he was there the year after Janathan had graduated. So, anything is possible for these guys, and especially a guy like Janathan, who really has not gotten his full chance to consistently play at the NBA level. Once he gets that, I think he's really just going to take off, and we're going to see him be a guy that goes under the radar for a while, and then he's just going to have a big breakout year, and we're going to see him be a consistent role player for a championship-level team like Anthony Lamb was. It took him a long time to break out, and then once he got into the right system with the Golden State Warriors, it really broke out, won the NBA championship with them, and ever since that, nothing. I think he's playing overseas now, but, hey, he has an NBA championship, and he's a millionaire from being a basketball player. Now, moving away from the Rochester guys, we're going to move on to the Sacramento Kings. We were looking so good. We were on a 4-game winning streak. Games against the Rockets, which Domantas Sabonis went down with an injury in this game, so he only played 1 minute, and then he hurt his hamstring. But in this game against the Rockets, it was really just a consistent all-around effort, pretty good shooting night from all the guys. And then on the Rockets side, they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. And outside of Alperen Şengün, who really had caused some troubles for Jonas Valanciunas down the stretch, other than that, Fred VanVleet only had 3 points in the starting lineup. Ahmed Thompson, 6. Dylan Brooks, 12. Jalen Green, 24. And then off the bench, Tari Eason was the only guy that really was consistent, had 14 points. But, Ime Udoka didn't really play that many guys. He only played a 9-man rotation tonight in this game. And I really thought that Cam Whitmore maybe could have came in and gave some solid minutes. Nate Williams, Janathan Williams also down there, did not play this game, but he has been played 2 games recently, so hopefully he can get into that rotation for the Rockets. They just have so many young guys. It's really going to be tough for him to get any consistent minutes. Then in this game for the Kings, like I say, DeMar DeRozan, 21 points, Zach LaVine, 20 points, and other than that, Jonas Valanciunas, 15 points. He's really been solid for us in this game, in the past 2 games where he's had to start with the Domantas Sabonis injury. And then our next game came against the Dallas Mavericks, in which we won a 122-98 victory. And all the headlines around this game were Kyrie Irving went down with a torn ACL, and we'll get into that a little bit after we're done with the Kings segment. In this game, though, again, Kyrie Irving only played 9 minutes. He went down in the third quarter with that injury. Other than that, Kai Jones off the bench for the Dallas Mavericks looked really good. 21 points, 9 for 10 shooting, and, it was his first ever game for the Mavericks. Had signed a 2-way contract with him the day of this game, so he really just kind of solidified himself a job for the rest of the season, since the Mavericks, we'll get more into what they're going to do in the coming probably 10 minutes. We'll talk about them, but I mean, Najee Marshall in this game after Kyrie went down was really the only consistent scorer for them. He had 18 points this game. Spencer Dinwiddie, 10 points off the bench. Max Christie, 10 points. And then other than that, nothing really. The starters, none of them scored in double digits. The leading scorer was Kyrie with 7 points. And then after that, 6 points from Kessler Edwards. Then in this game, the Sacramento Kings, DeMar DeRozan, 20 points. Keegan Murray, 18. Jonas Valanciunas, 14 and 9 rebounds. Zach LaVine, 22 points. Malik Monk, 13 points. Trey Lyles, Jake LaRavia, Doug McDermott had some solid games off the bench. Isaac Jones, Markelle Fultz. Keon Ellis did not score in this game, 0 for 7 shooting, 0 for 6 from the three-point line. He's been very hit or miss when it comes to his box score numbers, but he still gives us plenty on the defensive end. He had 2 blocks this game. So I'm still very keen on getting Keon Ellis in the starting lineup, because in the next game we played, which we did lose, which was the 116-110 loss to the Denver Nuggets, which, I mean, we started off the game so good, 42 points in the first quarter against a team that is always consistently a really good defensive team. DeMar DeRozan had a 35-point game. Keegan Murray still struggling to shoot the ball. Thought after that one game where he hit 5 or 6 threes, I really thought it was going to kind of break him out a little bit this season, but still consistently not shooting the three-point ball well, so we're really struggling there. Jonas Valanciunas, 19 points, 13 rebounds in this game, also 6 assists. So he was really big in this game, especially he had to go up against Nikola Jokic. Zach LaVine, 20 points. Keon Ellis, 11 points, but 2 steals and 2 blocks. And then off the bench, Jake LaRavia finally had his first really big game as a Kings player, 15 points off the bench. But 13 of those points came in the first quarter and a half, I believe, or maybe just the first half of this game. So after that, he didn't really do much for us. Markelle Fultz, 0 points in 10 minutes. And then for the Nuggets, I mean, Nikola Jokic, 22 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, there's not much you can do against Nikola Jokic, and holding him to 20 rebounds or 22 points and 6 assists is not terrible. It's not a great winning recipe, but I mean, for Jonas Valanciunas, I think he did a very good job against Nikola Jokic in this game. And then again, Russell Westbrook, 25 points. Jamal Murray, 24 points. MPJ, 13. Christian Braun, 15. Zeke Nnaji really came off the bench and had 10 points and 3 blocks. And then Jalen Pickett, again, Rochester native, 5 points in this game. So I did not like seeing the Kings lose, but I like seeing Jalen Pickett on the floor for a team that is contending for an NBA championship. So hopefully he can get minutes down the stretch, maybe some playoff minutes. But in this game, I mean, it was the fourth quarter just fell apart for us. We only scored 17 points in the fourth quarter, and the Denver Nuggets scored 32. And, I mean, when you have a DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine on the floor in the fourth quarter and they're not scoring the ball at the level they should be, they're not really giving you much on the defensive end. So it was just a bad loss for the Kings. But, I mean, 6-point loss to a team that's like third in the standings in the Western Conference right now. Right now, the Kings are 9th in the Western Conference, one game above the Mavericks, half a game back from the Clippers, and a game and a half back from the Timberwolves, who are the 7th seed. So I think I can confidently say the Sacramento Kings are locked in for the play-in this season. Now, the biggest thing is, one, getting Domantas Sabonis back healthy for those games to push us into the play-in or in the playoffs. And I really think Keon Ellis needs to be a consistent starter for us. I really like, now that we have some more defense off the bench with Jake LaRavia and Markelle Fultz, I like that addition of getting more defense into the starting lineup and moving Malik Monk, who has always been a complete scorer. He's a flamethrower off the bench. He can close out games if you really need scoring on the floor. But I think for him and for the Kings to be the best team they can be, Keon Ellis being in the starting lineup game in and game out is key. And Malik Monk coming off the bench and really being just that premier scorer, the guy that we look for off the bench, is his role. He's used to playing that role. He played that role last year, and he played that role when he was with the Lakers. He's always been more of a six-man guy in my eyes than a consistent starter on a team that is contending for a playoff push. So, and then Keon Ellis this season, per 36 numbers, 12.7 points per game on 48% shooting and 43% from the three-point line. I really would love to see Keon just consistently. And the thing is with Keon is the defense down the stretch could be so key for us winning some games. And then to compare the per 36 numbers with a guy like Malik Monk, who would probably be taking his position. Malik Monk, per 36 numbers, 19.6 points, 44% from the field, and 32% from the three-point line. So Keon would really give. Now, this per 36 is always a estimate of what a player could produce in 36 minutes. But really, getting that more consistent three-point shooting, and you get a guy that can be a lockdown on the defensive end, is more key than having a premier scorer in Malik Monk, who is also next to two other premier scorers in the starting lineup with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. So I think Doug Christie really needs to lock in on the fact of getting Keon in the starting lineup and make that transition to pushing Malik to the bench. Malik has not been a terrible playmaker, and Keon is not an amazing playmaker either. So the playmaking aspect of both of them is not really what's going to push us over the top. I think it's really just the defense that Keon can bring. And I mean, looking at the bottom of the Western Conference, like some of the play-in spots, I mean, the Clippers, they got James Harden, Norman Powell as the premier guards on that team. You're going to want Keon Ellis to be in that starting lineup to try to slow down either James Harden or Norman Powell, and then you're going to have to put a couple bodies on Kawhi Leonard if he's playing. And then the Timberwolves, I mean, Anthony Edwards, he's not really going to get slowed down, or you're not going to be able to stop James Harden, Anthony Edwards. You're not going to be able to stop them. But if you can slow them down to the point where you can make the game close and you have two fourth-quarter scorers, it would really be beneficial to have a guy that can at least slow down Anthony Edwards in Keon Ellis. And now the 10th spot for the play-in is going to be kind of questionable going down the stretch because, I mean, we'll just transition right into the Dallas Mavericks. So Kyrie Irving, as most people already know, is now out for the rest of the season after he tore his ACL against the Sacramento Kings. And now there's a possibility that Anthony Davis could be shut down for the season as well. And, I mean, they went from a 72% chance to make the playoffs on February 26th to an 8% chance on March 4th. Now, before I get into what I think the Mavericks need to go into the offseason with, because this season is over with for them, biggest fall from grace. You were in the NBA Finals last year. You trade away your best player to get a aging superstar who has consistent health issues, and you try to build a team around two guys that are on the tail end of their career, at the peak of their tail end of their career, and you want to build around two guys that have had some health issues. This is Kyrie's real first big injury. And then Anthony Davis is always kind of in and out of the lineup, dealing with injuries at weeks at a time. So if the Mavericks shut down Anthony Davis, they're most likely not going to make the play-in. And really I think there's two teams that have a spot at making that spot, that 10th spot. It's between the Phoenix Suns because they have Devin Booker, they have Kevin Durant, they have Bradley Beal, they have the keys to make that push, but they just can't string wins together. They're not a fluent team. They're not built the right way. But a team I kind of like to make this push. They're 4 games back from the Dallas Mavericks spot and a game and a half back from the Phoenix Suns is the Portland Trail Blazers. They were a team coming into the season where I thought they were going to win. They were going to struggle really early in the season. They were not going to do much. Chauncey Billups was going to be on the hot seat. And they've kind of proved me wrong, and now they have a chance to really push for that play-in spot. And I like their roster. They just had one of the best defenses of February, and they had Toumani Camara, also won Defensive Player of the Month in the Western Conference. So they've built this team on defense. Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, 2 guys that can go out and score 30 every night if you really need them to. Denny Avdia has come over, been really solid for them. Jeremy Grant, solid vet that can really push these guys. DeAndre Ayton needs to make a name for himself before his contract is up. Scoot Henderson off the bench, second-year guy, really having a better season than last season, averaging around 11 points per game. And then some fill-in guys, Toumani Camara, Delano Banton, the rookie center Donovan Klingman, and then Robert Williams if he ever gets healthy. I mean, this team can really push for that play-in spot, and I would love to see it. A team that was kind of really counted out before the season even started. I mean, in a stacked Western Conference, nobody is really going to think that Portland has a chance at really making the final play-in spot. For me, I think they'll make the play-in spot. I like them more than Dallas going down the stretch, and I like them more than Phoenix going down the stretch because Phoenix does not defend the ball at all. I think it's going to be really big for them. Chauncey Billups gets another chance, which I think even after this season, if they don't make the play-in, Chauncey Billups will have another season as the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. And, I mean, getting some of these young guys some play-in, playoff experience could be really big. And, I mean, even if you lose in the first game against the Kings, you still had a chance to make the playoffs, and that's better than a lot of teams predicted coming into the season because right now you're most likely not going to be one of the top 3 picks. And this draft class isn't bad, so where you'll be around 14th, 15th pick, I mean, there's always a chance at you getting a top 3 pick, but it's not very likely. But, I mean, you can fill in another solid rookie that you've shown that you can draft well in the last couple seasons. Jabari Walker is another solid guy that I didn't name. I mean, Donovan Klingman, their rookie right now, kind of struggling to get minutes and kind of full front court. And then, I mean, Shaedon Sharpe, not too far into his NBA career. Scoot Henderson, second-year guy. You have a lot of really solid young building blocks around and make a push for a play-in spot. You might not make the playoffs. You might lose in the first game, but you still push for that play-in spot. You gave these guys something to really end the season looking forward to, and then going to the draft and you had another younger guy to build around them. I love that for the Portland Trail Blazers and now for the Dallas Mavericks, what I think they need to do this offseason. So first thing a lot of people are going to say with the Dallas Mavericks is you need to fire Nico Harrison. Now, I do not condone Nico Harrison having a job at all right now, but I think if you're the Dallas Mavericks owner, which we already know they don't care about basketball, they don't really care about their fans, they just put a price increase, a minor price increase, but they still made a price increase to their season ticket holders. You have to let Nico Harrison have at least one more season, I believe. You can't let him destroy your franchise in one trade that you, as an owner, you let him have full reign in making the trade. You can't get rid of him so soon, I think, because that's just going to put everybody that goes into a Dallas Mavericks GM spot really just be like, I have free reign, or I don't have free reign to do anything, because even if I make a small trade and it does not go well, I'm out of there, because they already saw what Nico Harrison did. They don't want another guy like me that can't come in and build the right team, and I'm not going to have a good enough leeway to make any moves I really want to make. So I think you have to let Nico Harrison rock out for one more year as the GM. Now, what you do in the offseason, you have a lot of good, solid building blocks, but I don't know. I don't find this team to be a contender next season after Kyrie Irving is a year older, Anthony Davis is a year older, Kyrie's coming off a torn ACL. It's just not going to work like that, and there's not much they can do because a lot of their younger guys, they haven't given them any solid minutes, so you can't be like, oh, Olivier Maxence Prosper Omax is going to come in and be a rotational guy that we're going to lean on to be a really solid defender. He just hasn't had the chance yet, and you can't expect him to push him right into that after you don't play him for 2 seasons in a row, and now you're like, oh, we really see what you have, but we're going to push you to be that guy now, and that's just not going to happen. I think the Mavericks are just going to go next season, same kind of roster. They might make another move, maybe. I mean, Klay Thompson's also getting a year older, so this team is just doomed from right now. They are doomed. After the Kyrie Irving torn ACL, they're doomed for the rest of Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and Nico Harrison's tenure as a Dallas Mavericks GM. Now, to speak of another injury, Joel Embiid is now out for the season, and some people from the Sixers are saying that he should medically retire, I believe I saw, which is kind of crazy to think about. And at some points, I really think I was really hard on Joel Embiid to start the year, but at points now, I'm really starting to think that it is a Philadelphia 76ers issue and the organization issue, which is terrible to see, because I think back to what I saw about Zion Williamson, saying that if he could play back-to-backs, he would. But the Pelicans organization, he said, like, I'm a Pelicans. I am an employee of the Pelicans. They pay for my checks. They pay me money to go play basketball. If they don't want me to play back-to-back nights, I'm not going to play back-to-back nights. So I really think if that is a situation going on in Philly and some of these things are not being handled the proper way that they should be handled for a guy that is Joel Embiid's stature, but at points it also feels like it is a Joel Embiid situation, because he's not really pushing for any like medical treatment, and now they're saying they might have to break his hip to realign his joints in his knee or whatever. It's crazy to see, and hopefully they can turn it around and really Joel can come back to what he is supposed to be as an MVP player in this league. But as of right now, I mean, Joel Embiid is 30 years old. March 16th is his birthday, so he's going to be 31 in a little bit more than a week. And he's already missed more games in his career than he has played. It's just not going to end. He's just not going to get this surgery and then come back and be fully healthy and be the guy that really people think he should be. And I think it's just, at this point now, it is about just making sure Joel Embiid is going to be healthy for after his NBA playing days. But to bounce around for Philly again, I think they really need to do something in the offseason to make themselves, like, I don't even really know how to word it, but Philly, they've just been really bad from the start. And I mean, at points it's because Joel Embiid has been out. Tyrese Maxey has had some injury issues this season. Jared McCain is out for the season. Paul George isn't what he should have been. And really, I think Joel Embiid's injury going down, Tyrese Maxey going down, really put a lot of pressure on Paul George to be kind of the guy that at this point in his career, I don't think he can be. And I think a lot of the pressure has really gotten to him, and that's what's really pushed him to have such a bad season this year. And, I mean, it's terrible to see a guy like Paul George have such an amazing season last year with the Clippers and to now drop to, I think he's around 14 points per game this season, somewhere in that area. And he's looked really bad in the games I've watched of him this season. He hasn't been consistent. There's nothing really going on with Philly. They're just kind of coasting the end of the season. I mean, right now they're sitting at 21-41, 4 games out of the 10th seed for the Bulls in the Eastern Conference play-in spot. But I mean, they're on a 3-game losing streak right now. Their season's over with, and it's kind of been over with for months now. But at this point, you can officially call it over with. But I mean, at least they have one bright spot. I mean, they traded Caleb Martin, who hasn't played a game for the Mavericks yet, for Quentin Grimes. And then Quentin Grimes the other night, 44-point game against the Warriors, who are 4th in defense since the Jimmy Butler trade. So, I mean, Q Grimes, he's kind of always been just a consistent role player for some teams, Knicks, Pistons, Mavericks, and now the Sixers. And I like the fit with the Sixers getting Quentin Grimes. I think he could fit really nice in there with their rotation of guys they have right now. If they were fully healthy, he'd just be a really solid starting guard for them, or even he could come off the bench with Jared McCain if he was healthy. And so I like that move for the 76ers. That was their only move they really made. So, I mean, at least they have one bright spot. Now, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll talk about some 50-point games, OKC Thunder, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll be right back here on RDSC. This has been Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by Michael Lyons.
Max Strus curling right side, drills the jumper. See what Strus does. He looks like he wants to shoot. I was kind of hoping he'd pull up there, and one. Floater was wet. Strus is loose. Strus curl, three. Bang. You know it.
My goodness. Strus on the other end gets it to fall and one.
Now up top, he's got a double team. Now it's just Figueroa on him. Nice move. Quick move.
Wow.
Out of control.
My goodness.
Wow, he was out of control.
Max
He finished off
Strus.
glass.
That is a new career high for Max Strus. He had 34 earlier this year. He's got 35 now.
You're listening to Radio DePaul Sports, the student voice of your DePaul Blue Demons.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE. I'm your host, Michael Lyons, and like I said before we went to the quick commercial break, we we're going to talk about the OKC Thunder. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now with wins against the Brooklyn Nets, the Atlanta Hawks, the San Antonio Spurs, which was a really fun game. A lot of tension brewing right there. The Houston Rockets and the Memphis Grizzlies. So 2 solid wins to end their 5-game winning streak so far, and then 2 mediocre teams that are struggling right now, and the Spurs, who kind of are figuring out where they're going to go. We're going to start off with this San Antonio Spurs game, and This game was super fun to watch. J-Dub, 41 points this game. Shea, 31. Casey Wallace, 19. And then other than that, quiet games for guys like Lou Dort, Isaiah Hartenstein. Aaron Wiggins off the bench, 17 points, though. Then for the Spurs, they were led by De'Aaron Fox, who had 20 points. Harrison Barnes, 14. Devin Vassell, 15. Stephon Castle with a 32-point game off the bench, which I think has really kind of solidified himself as the Rookie of the Year. Depending on injuries and how the end of the season comes for Jalen Wells, who we talked about a couple of shows ago. I think that might have been last show, actually. But this game, there was a lot of tension brewing. We saw Julian Champagnie and Kenrich Williams really get into it. They both got ejected. And then one more person for the Spurs, or the Spurs also had Jeremy Sohan got a tech, and then somebody else for the Thunder got ejected. I don't exactly remember who it was. It might have been Aaron Wiggins, I think maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. I know Kenrich Williams and Julian Champagnie really got into it, and I think how these two teams are built for the next coming seasons, I mean, obviously, you can never really know what's going to be a rivalry in sports. You can't predict rivalries, but, I mean, if you just look at teams and how they're built, they are primed to be rivals in the Western Conference with how young they are. They're both going to be at the peak of their power around the same time, and, I mean, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on one side. Now you have De'Aaron Fox or Stephon Castle. And then, I mean, Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama, kind of two guys that are similar to each other, who could really be rivals in the Western Conference as being the next two big guys in the West. So I love it. I mean, role players getting into it is always good. I mean, gives some pressure to especially a team like the Thunder, who throughout this game, I mean, the first half was pretty even between the Thunder and the Spurs, and then the third quarter was when the little scuffle happened, and then Thunder just kind of took over after that point, outscoring the Spurs 36-23 in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, 38-32. So just a solid game from the Thunder, and then, I mean, Shai backs this game up with getting a 51-point game against the Rockets in his next game, his fourth 50-point game of the season, really just proving that he is a consistent scorer. Nobody can really mess with him, if we're going to be honest. I think it's tough to say so far because, I mean, Nikola Jokic is having such a good season, and Shai is also having such a good season. It's really coming down between both of those guys for the MVP this season. I think it's going to go to Shai just because of the wins. He's going to be the number one seed in the Western Conference. 4 50-point games, and I mean, he's just been super consistent this season. No ups and downs. His team's never really flattened out. They've never struggled really much this season. Nuggets at points, you could see them kind of being in a wave system, up and down. So I think Shai is still the lock for the MVP, but I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Nikola Jokic won. In this game, you also saw Chet Holmgren had 11 points, J-Dub 24. Other than that, nothing really. Casey Wallace 14 points off the bench. For the Rockets, they're really struggling as of late. I think they're on a 5 or 4 game. Oh, they beat the Pelicans. My mistake. They were on a 3-game losing streak before the Pelicans win. In this game, 27 points for Cam Whitmore, which, again, just doesn't make sense why these guys aren't getting consistent minutes like Cam Whitmore. I mean, if Cam Whitmore played in the Kings game against the Rockets, I mean, they most likely win that game. It wasn't too far out of the ordinary. Reed Shepherd had 25 in the starting lineup, Jalen Green 18, and then off the bench, we saw Jonathan Williams started the show off talking about him. Had 6 points in 23 minutes, pretty solid. Not a great shooting game, but it's tough when you're not consistently playing and then you get put in for 23 minutes. So, but he showed a couple flashes. Some people got to see him for the first time and they've never seen him before, so that's always good. Other than that, nothing crazy around this game. Now we're going to transition over to, speaking of the 50-point game that Shea had, James Harden had a 50-point game, the first 50-point game in the Intuit Dome against the Detroit Pistons in a 123-115 victory. James Harden in this game, 50 points on 14 for 24 shooting. So very consistent game for him. 1 steal, 1 block, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Really solid game from James Harden. And first 50-point game in the Intuit Dome. And now James Harden has more 50-point games than Kevin Durant and LeBron James combined, which is crazy to think about how insane James Harden was at his peak. Houston, James Harden was a different breed. And for this game, for the Pistons, they've been struggling as of late. Kind of beating up on the lower teams, but against the bigger teams, against the Nuggets and the Clippers, they struggled. Nets and Jazz, they breezed past, though. In this game, though, Detroit, 37 points for Cade Cunningham. Double-double for Cade Cunningham with also 10 assists. Malik Beasley, 14 points. Off the bench, Dennis Schroeder had 21 points. Isaiah Stewart, 10 points. Nothing crazy from the Detroit Pistons. Just a really promising game if you're a Clippers fan for James Harden down the stretch of this season. And this game also had no Kawhi Leonard or a Norman Powell. So really big to get a dub against a solid Detroit Pistons team and keep yourself in the mix in the Western Conference play-in. As long as if you can get that to that spot where you only have to play one, if you only have to get one win to make it, is really key. So Minnesota and the Clippers, Minnesota has kind of spread themselves out a little bit. I think they will be that 7th seed. And then it's going to really be a battle between LA, the Clippers, and the Kings for that 8th seed. And you always want to get that 8-7 seed. You only have to win one game to be the 7th seed. And right now, it's tough to say if you'd rather play the Lakers or the Thunder. But just getting a little bit of rest and then coming in, being prepared, getting some time to motivate yourself, prepare yourself for the team you're going to be playing is a little bit more. And also being the 7-8 seed, you get that chance of losing. You also get that chance of it's not just a win-or-go-home kind of game because you still get a second chance. So hopefully the Kings can get there. Then to end the show out, a couple minutes talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are on a 12-game winning streak, the first team to clinch a playoff spot this season. And their last loss was against the Celtics, which was a very long time ago at this point. I mean, they have wins against the Pistons, the Timberwolves, the Knicks, the Grizzlies, the Celtics again, the Bulls, the Heat. They've just really been putting it on teams, and one of the biggest things with this is DeAndre Hunter. They picked him up. He's played 10 games for them so far. 3 games he started. He's averaging 15 points per game. He's having a really solid season this season before he even moved to the Cavs. But now that he's on the Cavs, he's really giving them that solid defensive wing that can also knock down some three-point shots. At one point, he was shooting around 60% from the three-point line. So this Cavs team, they're just really well built. Ty Jerome is coming in when he needs to, giving the Cavs a lot of really solid minutes, really solid games. When Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell are out, they're not really worried because they can just fill in with Ty Jerome. So, and then another solid pickup they added Javonte Green, who has just always been a consistent wing defender for teams, and they pick him up to serve as some wing depth for them. And I mean, I love the moves the Cavs made. I still am iffy on who I'm going to pick in the Eastern Conference because The Cavs, yes, they've been so dominant this season. They're 7.5 games ahead of the Celtics. They beat the Celtics a couple times, but I feel more confident in the Celtics making the final push, getting over the hump, and beating the Cavs when it comes to the playoff scenario, which seems kind of wild because the Cavs just have so many, but the Celtics, when they are healthy, you have Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis as your starting lineup. Derek White and Drew Holiday, they're not going to completely shut down Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, but at that point, you really have to look at the next guy on your team, and if you're really going to try to rely on Evan Mobley to kind of win you a playoff series, I don't think it's going to happen when the Celtics can really look at any 5 of those guys. Mainly, they're going to look at Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and then Kristaps Porzingis. They're going to look at those 3 guys first. They're going to be like, who has the best matchup, and they're going to just attack that. And, I mean, they're proven winners coming off the championship last season, so they are put themselves in the perfect situation as long as they're healthy. And I think I'm still going to pick the Boston Celtics to make it out of the Eastern Conference this season. It's nothing against the Cavs. It's not going to take anything away from the Cavs and what they've done this season. It's just I like the confidence the Celtics play with at points, and I like the fact that they've already been in the finals. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been there twice at this point, and I mean, they're coming off the finals, the championship win last season, so I'm picking Boston as my Eastern Conference team so far, but that might change in the coming weeks before the playoffs. That's all I have today. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to Beyond the Scoreboard presented by RDSE, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons.